Maya was not an ordinary woman. She was a mother. And like many mothers, she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders, but her world was much heavier than most. Every morning, before the sun rose, she was already awake. She tied her faded scarf around her head, took a deep breath, and prepared herself for another day of struggle. Her house was no real house at all. It was a small, broken room with cracked walls and a roof that leaked whenever it rained. The floor was rough, the furniture was old, and the only window had a piece of cardboard where glass used to be. But to Maya, it was still home, because inside that tiny space lived the only reason she kept fighting, her son, Ian. Ian was just 7 years old, with a smile that could melt the hardest heart. But his small body carried a heavy burden. He was sick, and his condition was getting worse every day. His breathing was weak, and sometimes he would cough until he turned pale. The doctor had said Ian needed medicine regularly, and soon even an operation. But all Maya had were a few coins in her pocket. That morning, she watched her son sleeping peacefully on the old mattress. His thin blanket barely covered him, and his chest rose and fell slowly. She brushed his hair with trembling fingers and whispered, "Don't worry, my son. Your mother will do anything for you." With that promise in her heart, she stepped out into the world. Maya worked wherever she could find work. Some days she cleaned houses, scrubbing floors until her hands burned. Other days she washed clothes for rich families, her back aching from bending over buckets of water. When no work came, she went to the streets, selling small snacks she prepared at night. But no matter how hard she worked, the money was never enough. The landlord knocked on her door every week, demanding rent she could not pay. "If you don't give me the money soon, you and your boy will be out on the streets," he threatened. Maya bowed her head, swallowing her pride, and begged for more time. In the market, people looked at her with pity. They whispered about her struggles, some with sympathy, others with judgment. But Maya kept her head high. She knew she could not let her son see her break. One evening, after a long day of work, Maya returned home carrying only a small packet of rice. Ian was sitting by the window, his face pale but his eyes bright with hope. "Mother," he said softly, "did you bring the medicine?" Her heart sank. She shook her head, forcing a smile. "Not today, my love. But tomorrow, I promise." Ian nodded, too innocent to understand the pain behind her words. He hugged her tightly, whispering, "It's okay, Mama. I know you'll find a way. You always do." That night, when Ian fell asleep, Maya sat alone in the dark. The candle flickered weakly beside her, and tears rolled down her cheeks. She had nothing left to sell, no jewelry, no savings, no one to ask for help. She buried her face in her hands and whispered, "God, give me strength. Show me a way. My son cannot suffer like this." But no answer came. Only silence, and the sound of her son's weak breathing from the corner of the room. The next day, Maya went searching for work again. She walked through the busy streets, her feet sore, her body tired, but her spirit unbroken. She knocked on doors, asked strangers, even waited outside offices, hoping someone would give her a chance. But rejection followed her everywhere. By evening, her body was exhausted, and her heart was heavy with despair. She sat on a bench, her hands shaking, and wondered how much longer she could continue like this. It was then, in that moment of weakness, that destiny quietly stepped into her life. A black luxury car stopped in front of her. The window rolled down, and inside sat a man whose world was the complete opposite of hers. His suit was sharp, his watch glittered with gold, and his eyes carried the cold confidence of someone who had never known hunger. The millionaire. He looked at Maya for a long moment, a strange expression on his face, and then spoke in a calm but commanding voice. "You look like a woman desperate enough to do anything. Am I right?" Maya froze, her heart pounding. She had no idea that this man, this stranger, was about to change her life forever. And so, her story began. Maya's heart raced as she stared at the man inside the black luxury car. She had never spoken to someone like him before. Everything about him screamed wealth, his polished shoes, his expensive suit, the gleam of his watch. He was the kind of man who lived in a world she could only see from far away. But his words struck her like lightning. "You look like a woman desperate enough to do anything. Am I right?" Maya's lips trembled, but she stayed silent. She did not like how he had spoken, But he was not wrong. She was desperate. Desperate for her son, desperate to keep her promise. The man smirked when she didn't reply. "I'm Arjun," he said casually, leaning back in his seat. "I don't waste time. I can give you more money in one day than you earn in a year. Enough to pay for your son's treatment. Enough to end your struggles." Maya's eyes widened in shock. How do you know about my son?" Arjun shrugged. "I don't. But I can see it in your face. A woman like you doesn't break unless it's for someone she loves. I've seen desperation before. It always tells a story." His voice was calm, but his words carried a strange power. Maya clutched the edge of her scarf tightly, unsure whether to run away or to listen. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice low but firm. Arjun's smirk deepened. "I'll tell you soon. But first, I want to see if you are truly willing to sacrifice anything for your son." Maya's chest tightened. She hated the way he looked at her, like she was some puzzle to be solved, some toy to be tested. But then she thought of Iron, lying at home with his weak body. She thought of his innocent smile, his trust in her, his belief that she could do the impossible. She could not walk away. "I will do anything," she said quietly, but with a strength that surprised even her. "If it saves my son, I will do anything." Arjun raised an eyebrow, impressed. "Good. I like your spirit. Meet me tomorrow at my mansion. If you are brave enough, if you are truly ready to sacrifice your pride, then you will come. If not, stay where you are, and keep struggling." Before Maya could respond, the car door shut and the vehicle sped away, leaving only dust behind. She stood there, frozen, her heart pounding. What kind of man was he? Why would a rich millionaire notice a poor woman like her? And what kind of request would he make in exchange for money? That night, she could barely sleep. Iron's weak coughing filled the room, breaking her heart again and again. She held his small hand and whispered, "Mama will save you. Even if it costs everything." The next morning, after sending Iron to a neighbor for care, Maya wrapped her scarf tightly and walked toward the mansion. It was like stepping into another world. The tall iron gates opened slowly, and inside stood a house larger than anything she had ever seen. Marble floors, glittering chandeliers, fountains spraying water in the garden, everything shone with wealth. Servants in uniforms moved around silently, bowing when Arjun walked by. Maya felt out of place. Her simple clothes, her tired face, her calloused hands, they did not belong here. But she walked forward, her chin lifted. She was here for her son, not for herself. Arjun appeared at the top of the staircase, looking down at her like a king. His smile was sharp, almost playful, but his eyes were cold. "You came," he said. "Good. That means you're serious." Maya took a deep breath. "Tell me what you want. I don't have time for games." Arjun chuckled. "Straight to the point. I like that. Very well, Maya. If you want my money, if you want my help, you must agree to my condition. It's simple, but not easy." Her stomach twisted in fear. She had no idea what he was about to say. "What condition?" she asked carefully. Arjun leaned closer, his voice calm but cutting. "I want you to do something no one has ever done for me. Something that will break your pride but prove your loyalty. If you can do it, I'll pay for everything your son needs." Maya's hands clenched. Her throat went dry. She wanted to scream at him, to tell him that her dignity was not for sale. But then she remembered Iron, lying helpless at home, waiting for her to bring hope. Her voice shook as she whispered, "What do you want me to do?" Arjun's smile widened. His words came out slowly, almost like a challenge. "I want you to bathe me with your own hands. Like a servant." Maya's breath caught in her chest. The world around her blurred. It was the most humiliating request she had ever heard. But behind her shock, one thought screamed louder than her pride: "My son needs me." And in that moment, she realized destiny was forcing her into a choice that would change her life forever. The words echoed in Maya's ears like thunder. "I want you to bathe me with your own hands. Like a servant." For a moment, she thought she had misheard him. Her eyes widened, her heart pounded, and her hands trembled. Out of all the things she had imagined, cleaning his house, cooking his meals, even working as his maid. She had never expected this. Arjun stood there calmly, his eyes fixed on her. His tone was not playful, it was firm, like he was testing her courage. "Why?" Maya whispered, her voice breaking. "Why would you ask me something so humiliating?" Arjun smirked slightly. "Because I want to see how far a mother's love can go. Words are easy, Maya. Sacrifice is not. If you can swallow your pride and do this, I will know you are truly desperate. And only then will I give you what you need." Maya's chest tightened with shame and anger. She wanted to shout at him, to tell him she was not a toy to be played with. But then, the image of Iron lying weak and pale flashed in her mind. His small hands, his trusting eyes, his soft voice calling her mama. She closed her eyes, and tears slid down her cheeks. Pride and dignity screamed inside her heart, but louder than both was her son's voice, whispering in her memory, "I know you'll find a way, mama. You always do." She opened her eyes again, looking at Arjun with quiet pain. "If this is what it takes, then I will do it." For the first time, Arjun's expression shifted. He had expected her to refuse, to walk away. But her answer caught him off guard. He tilted his head, curious. "You're really willing to do this?" he asked, almost disbelieving. Maya wiped her tears with the edge of her scarf. Her voice was firm now, though it trembled with emotion. "I told you. For my son, I will do anything. Even if it breaks me." Arjun stared at her for a moment, silent. Something in her eyes unsettled him. He had seen many people bow before money, but none with such painful strength. This wasn't about greed. It was about love, a love so powerful it was willing to be humiliated. He cleared his throat and gestured toward the grand bathroom. It was larger than Maya's entire house, with marble floors, golden taps, and a giant bathtub filled with steaming water. The scent of expensive soap filled the air. Maya's feet felt heavy as she stepped inside. Her heart pounded, her hands shook, and every part of her screamed to run away. But she thought of Iron again, and she stayed. Arjun removed his watch and jacket, placing them carefully on the counter. He glanced at her with a strange look, half arrogant, half thoughtful. "You may begin," he said. Maya took a deep breath. Her fingers touched the water, and for a moment she froze. Her pride crumbled piece by piece as she dipped a cloth into the warm water and moved toward him. Her face burned with shame, but she forced herself to continue. Every motion was heavy, every second felt like a knife cutting into her dignity. She kept her eyes down, refusing to look at him. Tears slipped silently down her cheeks, falling into the water. Arjun watched her carefully. At first, he felt victorious. To him, this was proof of his power, proof that even the strongest dignity could bend before his wealth. But slowly, something shifted inside him. He saw her trembling hands. He saw the silent tears she tried to hide. He saw the pain in her eyes, not for herself, but for her son. And for the first time in his life, the arrogant millionaire felt something strange. Guilt. Minutes passed in silence. The sound of water echoed in the room, mixing with the quiet sobs Maya could no longer control. When it was finally over, she stepped back, her body shaking, her scarf wet with tears. She could not even look at him. "There," she whispered, her voice hollow. "I've done what you asked. Now keep your word. Help my son." Arjun remained silent, staring at her. His smirk was gone. His confidence was gone. What remained was confusion. He had wanted to prove that everyone could be broken by money. But instead, Maya had proven something else, something far more powerful. Her love had broken him. Maya turned to leave, her dignity shattered but her resolve unbroken. She whispered to herself, "Forgive me, Iron. Your mother will do anything for you." Arjun stood frozen, watching her walk away. And for the first time in his life, he wondered if he had just crossed a line he could never erase. He had tested a mother's love. And it was a test that changed him in ways he could not yet understand. Maya walked out of the bathroom with her scarf clutched tightly around her. Her heart felt heavier than ever before. Every step was slow, as if the weight of shame pressed down on her shoulders. She had done something she never thought she could. Something no woman should ever be forced to do. Her dignity felt broken, but her love for Arjan still burned like a fire. It was the only reason she hadn't collapsed. Arjan, meanwhile, stood silently behind her. His usual arrogance, his smirk, his air of superiority, they were missing. He should have felt powerful, proud that he had made her bend. But instead, something inside him felt uneasy. The image of her trembling hands and silent tears wouldn't leave his mind. He followed her into the grand living room, where sunlight poured through tall windows. Maya stood near the corner, her back turned, as if hiding her face from the golden light. She was ashamed, but at the same time, her heart whispered again and again, it was for Arjan. Everything is for Arjan. Finally, she spoke, her voice heavy with exhaustion. I have done what you asked, she said. Now keep your promise. Help my son. Her words cut through the silence. Arjan leaned against the wall, his jaw tightening. He had expected her to beg, to plead for mercy. But she didn't. Instead, her voice was steady, even in her brokenness. You have strength, Arjan said finally, almost as if admitting it to himself. More than most people I know. Maya didn't answer. She only wiped her tears with the edge of her scarf, refusing to let him see how deeply she was hurting. Arjan studied her face carefully. For years, he had been surrounded by people who wanted his money, who laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny, who flattered him because they feared losing his favor. But this woman, this poor, desperate mother, was different. She didn't care about him. She cared only about her son. It stirred something inside him he couldn't quite name. Tell me, Arjan said slowly, why do you go so far? Why not let the boy's fate be what it is? Why sacrifice everything for him? Maya finally turned, her eyes blazing with emotion. Because he is my son, she said firmly. Because he is my whole world. You may have all the money in the world, but if you ever had a mother who loved you, you would understand. Her words pierced him deeper than she realized. For a moment, he felt a sharp ache in his chest, memories of his own mother, long gone, who had once sacrificed everything for him. But he had buried those memories under layers of pride and arrogance. Maya's voice cracked, but her words were strong. I would rather lose my dignity 1,000 times than lose him once. That is what it means to be a mother. Arjan lowered his eyes. For the first time in years, he had no reply. The silence stretched between them. Maya felt her heart pounding, uncertain if he would truly help her or if he had only played a cruel game. She prayed silently, please, God. Please let this pain mean something. Finally, Arjan walked to his desk. He opened a drawer, pulled out a checkbook, and signed his name quickly. He tore the check and held it out toward her. Take this, he said. It's more than enough for your son's treatment. And for your living expenses. Maya stared at the paper in his hand. Her throat tightened. Relief and suspicion mixed inside her. Was this real? Was he truly giving her the money after humiliating her? She hesitated. Arjan's voice softened, though it was still heavy with pride. Take it, Maya. I may test people, but I don't lie about promises. Slowly, with trembling fingers, Maya reached out and accepted the check. Her heart raced. For the first time in months, hope flickered inside her chest. Arjan could finally get the care he needed. But even as she clutched the check, she felt something else, an invisible scar deep inside her soul. She had given up a piece of herself that she could never get back. Arjan watched her closely. He thought he had broken her, but instead, he realized she was stronger than ever. She had faced humiliation and still stood tall for her son. That strength unsettled him. As Maya turned to leave, Arjan's voice stopped her. Maya, he said quietly, almost unsure why he was speaking. You hate me now, don't you? She paused, her hand on the doorframe. Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steady. I don't have time to hate you. My son needs me. That's all that matters. With those words, she walked out, leaving Arjan alone in the golden light. He sat down heavily, running his hand through his hair. For the first time in his life, he questioned himself. Had he gone too far? Why did her pain feel heavier on his heart than on hers? Arjan didn't know it yet, but this single act, this painful test, was about to change the course of both their lives forever. Maya left the mansion clutching the check tightly in her hand. The evening sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows on the road as she walked home. Her heart was heavy with pain, but for the first time in many months, she also carried hope. Her son could finally get the treatment he needed. But even as she walked, tears ran down her cheeks. She whispered to herself again and again, "Forgive me, Ian. One day, you'll understand why Mama did this." Inside the mansion, Arjun sat in silence. The usual confidence that followed him like a shadow was gone. Instead, his mind was restless. He could still see her trembling hands, her quiet tears, her fiery words about a mother's love. He poured himself a glass of whiskey but left it untouched. His eyes drifted to an old photograph tucked away in his drawer. A picture of his mother, smiling, holding his hand when he was a boy. She had been poor too, struggling alone after his father abandoned them. She had worked day and night, never once caring for her own dignity, just to raise him. But Arjun, in his thirst for power and wealth, had buried those memories. He had told himself that emotions made people weak, that love was useless, that only money controlled the world. Yet Maya's words had cracked open the wall he had built inside. "Because he is my son. He is my whole world." Those words haunted him. They were the same words his mother might have said once upon a time. The next morning, Maya rushed Ian to the hospital with the check. The doctors finally agreed to start treatment. For the first time in weeks, she felt her chest loosen a little. Ian's small face lit up when he saw the medicine, when he realized his pain might finally end. "Mama," he whispered, holding her hand tightly, "you're the best. You always find a way." Maya smiled, though her eyes carried hidden sorrow. If only he knew what she had sacrificed. Meanwhile, Arjun could not stay away. For reasons he could not explain, he found himself driving to the hospital later that day. He stayed in his car at first, watching from a distance. Through the glass doors, he saw Maya sitting by her son's bed, brushing his hair gently, humming a lullaby. It struck him deeply. For all his wealth, his grand mansion, his servants, he had no one to sing to him, no one to look at him with such pure love. He had money, but she had something far more powerful. That night, he called his assistant. "Find out everything about that woman. I want to know her past, her struggles, everything." By the next day, the file lay on his desk. Arjun opened it, scanning through the papers. His heart grew heavier with every page. Maya's husband had abandoned her years ago, leaving her with debts and a sick child. She had worked countless jobs, cleaning houses, washing dishes, sometimes going hungry herself just to feed Ian. She had been thrown out by landlords, insulted by strangers, yet she never gave up. Arjun leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes. Shame washed over him. He had humiliated this woman, forced her into the most painful act of her life, when all she had ever done was fight bravely for her son. But something else caught his eye. At the bottom of the file was a detail his assistant had uncovered. Maya's son had a rare condition that required long-term treatment, something far more costly than a single check could cover. Arjun's chest tightened. For the first time in his life, he felt powerless. Money was not enough. Not if she had to go through humiliation again and again to keep fighting. That evening, Arjun went to the hospital. Maya looked up in surprise when she saw him standing at the doorway. She wanted to turn away, but his gaze was different now, no longer cold, no longer arrogant. "I came to see your son," Arjun said quietly. Maya's lips pressed tightly together. She didn't trust him. She remembered his cruel challenge, the humiliation he had forced on her. But Ian, with his innocent smile, looked at the tall man and whispered, "Mama, is he your friend?" Maya's heart broke at the question. Before she could answer, Arjun stepped forward and said softly, "Yes. I want to be your friend." Ian smiled weakly, not knowing the storm of emotions between the two adults. Maya turned her eyes away. "Why are you here, Arjun? You've done enough." Arjun hesitated. His pride told him to leave, but something stronger pulled him to stay. "Because I was wrong," he admitted. "I thought I could test you, that I could prove money controls everything. But you proved me wrong. Your love is stronger than anything I've ever seen." Maya's chest ached at his words. She didn't reply, but tears welled up again. Arjun continued, his voice softer than she had ever heard before. "You said destiny always has other plans. Maybe destiny brought you into my life to remind me of something I had forgotten." For the first time, Maya saw a glimpse of the man hidden beneath the arrogant millionaire. And in that moment, she realized destiny was indeed weaving something unexpected. Days passed, and Iron's treatment slowly began to show results. His pale face regained some color, his weak body found strength, and his smile returned little by little. Maya's heart filled with relief every time she saw him laugh again, though deep inside, the scars of humiliation still burned. She had paid a heavy price for this miracle. Arjun, however, could not escape the weight of his guilt. Every night, her trembling hands and broken voice echoed in his mind. He had built his life on arrogance, believing money gave him power over everyone. But Maya had proved him wrong. Her sacrifice had humbled him in a way nothing else ever could. One morning, Arjun returned to the hospital, not in his expensive suits, but in simple clothes. For the first time, he looked less like a millionaire and more like an ordinary man. Maya was surprised to see him, and she immediately stiffened. "What now, Arjun?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Haven't you taken enough from me?" He lowered his eyes, something she had never seen him do before. "I came to apologize," he said sincerely. "I was cruel. I used your desperation against you. You had every right to hate me. But I can't live with the man I was. I want to make things right." Maya's chest tightened. She wanted to scream at him, to throw his words back in his face. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something different, remorse, genuine and raw. Still, her voice was firm. "No apology can erase what you did. You broke my dignity." "I know," Arjun whispered. "And I will carry that shame forever. But let me at least give you a better future, for you and your son. Not as payment, not as pity, but as my way of redemption." Maya stayed silent, unsure of what to say. That evening, Arjun made an announcement that shocked everyone. He had set up a charitable foundation in Iron's name, one that would fund treatment for children suffering from the same illness. He also arranged for Maya to have a secure home and work, where she could live with dignity, never again forced to bow to anyone's cruelty. When the news spread, people whispered in disbelief. The arrogant millionaire was changing. But only Maya knew the truth behind his transformation. She confronted him one last time. "Why are you doing this, Arjun? Why me? Why my son?" Arjun's eyes softened, and his voice carried a pain he had hidden for years. "Because once, a long time ago, I had a mother just like you. She gave up everything for me, but I was too blind to see it then. I treated her sacrifices like they were nothing. By the time I understood, it was too late. She was gone. When I saw you, Maya, I saw her again. I saw the same strength, the same love, the same fire. And when I tested you, when I broke you, I realized I had repeated the same mistake. But destiny gave me another chance. Maybe this time, I can make it right." Tears filled Maya's eyes. For the first time, she saw the man behind the arrogant mask. He wasn't just a millionaire. He was a broken son, haunted by his own regrets. For a long moment, they stood in silence. The air between them was heavy, but no longer with hatred. Instead, it carried something new, understanding. Arjun bent down to Iron's bedside. The little boy looked up at him with innocent eyes. "Uncle Arjun, will you come again tomorrow?" he asked. Arjun smiled softly, ruffling the boy's hair. "I'll come every day, if your mother allows it." Maya's heart softened, though she still carried her wounds. She realized destiny had indeed woven a plan far beyond her imagination. What began as humiliation was slowly turning into hope, not just for her son, but for her as well. Weeks later, Iron's health improved dramatically. Maya finally walked out of the hospital with him, holding his hand, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. For the first time in years, the future didn't look like a dark tunnel. And beside them, walking quietly, was Arjun. Not as a powerful millionaire showing off his wealth, but as a man humbled by love and regret, ready to begin again. As they stepped into the sunlight, Maya whispered to her son, "See, Iron, destiny always has other plans. And sometimes, they are better than we can ever dream." Iron smiled brightly, and in that moment, Maya finally believed it too.